Anyway, really nice to see you all. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with a little prayer. It's a little mantra that helps just focus the mind. We've all had I'm assuming, a busy day at university. And just to bring that focus back and honor the fact that we're all dependent in this world, that we have some dependability on others, especially those who come before us and have wisdom and knowledge. And so this mantra is a way of collectively thanking and giving our gratitude to teachers who came before us, right? So if you know it, join in. If not, then you can hear it deeply, because spiritual acumen is developed through hearing. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, being in this wonderful institution that you have here at LSE, and maybe you're from different universities across London, people who think deeply and consider a topic deeply, these persons, they become leaders of society. So today I feel like I'm sitting in a room full of leaders, and we're all leaders in our own right, because you may find that whatever position you are in, there's always somebody looking up to you and appreciating what you do. And there's always somebody that you're looking up to also, who may have skills and qualities that you aspire for. So there's this spectrum, there's always a spectrum. And so speaking to the leaders are very important, because you're all speaking to others who you're bringing forth also. So I'm very grateful to be here. I think I'm going to start with a little bit about my life story, just to give a little personal touch to it, so we get to know each other a little bit. And feel free to raise your hands and be interactive anytime throughout this session. That's what classes like this are for. It's not a one-way lecture like you might have had all through today, right? So I grew up here in London in a family of immigrants. My mum and my dad, they're both from Hong Kong. And they moved here in 1997 when China took back Hong Kong. And China had promised that they would keep a system of British law in Hong Kong, but at the same time, they would rule Hong Kong as a state within China. So my parents didn't believe him, and so they left. They said, "Okay, I can't deal with this. I like the British rule. I liked the systems that we had in place." And they were university students, so they came to the UK, and they were super poor at the time. Like, my mum had £500 in the bank account. And guess what she did with what she did with that £500? Anyone has a guess? She came, and the first thing she did when she got off the plane she went straight to a Buddhist temple. My mum's a Buddhist. And she donated £400 to the temple. Like, all of you guys must be thinking, like, this must be crazy, right? You're economists. Like, why would you do that with your money? You're supposed to be frugal with your money. But I realized that actually why I'm here today is because of the blessings of those monks that I met when I was a kid. I used to run around the temple, and they would make flower garlands, and they would be decorating the temple room, and I'd be there and just hanging out with the monks. So that always left me a deep impression of what monks do and their value in society. So, yeah, I went to a very nice school. So after that, you know, my parents, they probably got the blessings of the monks also. So they made a living for themselves here in the UK. And I went to school, a very nice school near Westminster Abbey. It's called Westminster School. And then I went on to study at UCL. And then I'll go a little bit more in depth into how I went into the working world. But actually my life was full of ups and downs, actually. And you may have read many stories, epics, and different, you know, novels, and they always have a hero's arc. And each and every one of you has a very unique and individual hero's arc, right? Oftentimes we'll start, you know, the heroes, like, you know, in the Avengers, for example, you see Captain America. He's a scrawny young kid, right? But then he gets drafted and he gets injected with this serum and he becomes this, you know, Captain America, right? And in between he has challenges, he has ups and downs. And that's in the Bhagavad Gita or in the ancient Vedic texts. It's a concept that is commonly talked about. There's a beautiful poem. It goes, Matraspasha tukonteya shitoshna sukadukada agamapayano nityas tamstatikshasva bharata. And it just means that happiness and distress in this world is just like winter and summer seasons. They come and they go. It's a constant cycle. And you wouldn't want to stop the seasons, right? Like when it's summer, you wouldn't go, okay, stop the summer, I want winter now. And when it's winter, you wouldn't go like, no, well, maybe you want to stop it, but it doesn't stop. It's a fact of life, right? So these happiness and distresses, ups and downs, they're always there in life, right? And sometimes the things that you think are happiness are actually distresses. Sometimes the things that you think are successes are actually failures. And those things that are failures are actually successes, right? And so there's a beautiful ancient parable that talks about how there was once a young boy. He went to the marketplace, and there he found a horse, very nice, beautiful horse. And he rode the horse home, thinking, wow, this would impress my parents, it would impress my family members, and the whole village would be so happy I brought this horse home. But when he came back to the village, all the villagers were like, how are we going to take care of this horse? He eats so much, right? We have to get fresh grass for him and, you know, make sure he's getting his water. So much attention needed. This is such a bad thing, right? So then the kid's upset. He said, oh, okay, but yeah, let's see how it goes. And having fed this horse and become more friendly with this horse, actually they discovered the horse actually does a lot of work. It can go, it can transport people from place to place, and you know, everybody is uplifted when there are animals around and animals to look after. Everyone was uplifted, and so society would think like that village was like, oh, actually this is a good thing. And so the boy's like, okay, it's a good thing, but let's wait and see, right? And so the next day, the boy, he was riding on the horse and he was galloping very fast through the forest, through the fields, through the meadows. And the horse was distracted by a rabbit. And so the horse kicked up and the boy was thrown across the field, and he landed badly on his leg, and his leg was broken. So the village elders were like, oh, such a disaster, such a calamity, that this boy, he's, got a broken leg now. This horse is such a terrible thing. We should never have got this horse. Right? But then the next day, there was a state of emergency in the country. Right? Donald Trump had waged war on Iran. So the army, they came, and it was a country where there was conscription. So the army officers came, and they were looking for young men to join the army. And so this boy who had a broken leg was lying in bed, and they came round and they were saying, okay, would you like to join? He's like, can't you see I've got a broken leg? Right? And they didn't pick him up. And so once again, good news for the boy. So we can see from this story that there's ups and downs of life, and we never know whether those ups and downs are actually successes or failures, whether they'll cause us ultimate happiness or distress. We'll never know. It's actually impossible to tell, right? So I also had a similar experience when I was young. Like I said, my parents, my mum, you can say, is like the traditional like tiger mum, right? Do some of you know that? Right? It's like in Chinese saying they call it the tiger mum because they're very strict and they want you to do well at everything for your own good. It's not for like anything. But so she always brought me to like violin class, piano class, this class, that class. Made sure I did my kumon and made sure I was doing things on time. And so all through primary school and secondary school, I was a topper. Everything very nice. And believe it or not, when I was age 13, I was this height already. I haven't grown since 13 years old. And so I used to play rugby, and you may have seen in some like American football films where, American films where there's like this like huge guy and then he's like got a trail of people like grabbing his ankles and he's got the rugby ball and he just walks them across the line. So that was me when I was 13. Everything was going nicely in life and it was so, it's like living in the heavenly planets or something, it's nice. But then I realized later on in life that experience of being really good at everything is actually detrimental to a person's growth. And I tell you why. I don't know if any of you experienced this yourselves, but you feel like an imposter all the time. You're like, okay, you're expecting that there's like a lack of gratitude. You're always expecting the best for yourself. You're always expecting that you're going to win everything. You're always expecting that, you're going to be the most popular person. Everyone's going to like you. You're always expecting that. And you become ungrateful. So, and proud and perhaps a little arrogant, right? So that's an example of how sometimes successes are actually failures in life. It makes you a person that is inauthentic and isn't in line with what you want for your life, right? But later on in life, especially it was during my second year of university, I studied economics, and all through my first year, because I thought, I was the top dog, and I was like, I don't need to study. I can have fun at uni. So party scene really got me. Yeah, UCL party scene. Yeah, I don't know how you guys party here, but UCL was pretty amazing at that. That's why they're not as good as the rankings as LSE. But you see, that year, when you stop studying, when you stop and you grind to a halt in your life, what happens is that you lose so many of the good qualities that have been built because you don't know why you were developing those qualities anyway. You thought it was just to get the result, right? And when you're results driven, what tends to happen is you do the things that are simple, right? There are people, for example, who study all the way through the year, right? And those persons, they're very steady. During the year, they're good. Exam time, they're good, right? But people who are results driven, they tend to find those things that will reward them with the result. So let's say you might not study all the way through the year, but in the last 5 days just before, you'll smash out all of the exam papers. Just find exactly what you need to pass and get a good grade, right? So results driven causes that kind of lack of substance. Instead, it makes you kind of like an airy and showy person, right? So I was experiencing that, and when I finished my first year of university, I could still pass, and I passed with good marks. But in the second year, sudden drop. I wasn't attending lectures, wasn't doing anything, and it was just, partying with my friends, playing computer games, whatever it was, right? And I failed my second year. I had to retake it. Actually, I was so depressed that I didn't even turn up for the exam. It was that bad, right? So you can see how success, it can turn into failure very quickly. Just in the course of 1 year, you can really make your life detrimental. But the funny thing was, that was the year that I picked up my spiritual life and started questioning what this world is about. Who am I? Why is there so much suffering? Right? Where am I supposed to go? So that year was the year that I met a Buddhist monk. I was part of the UCL Buddhist Society at the time. And it was eye-opening for me, because I saw a monk who was, I was there to debunk him, by the way, because I still had my notions that I knew a lot about this world, and that somehow, with my 1 year of university, I knew more than all the people in the world. This arrogance that you develop. So this monk, he came, and I was there to ask him loads of questions and make sure that he's, he doesn't get away with it, because monks sometimes get away with it, right? Because they sit here and they look all like, serene and peaceful, and then you're frightened to ask them questions, and they get away with it. So today I don't want you to let me get away with it. You ask the hard questions today at the end. If you can think of any good questions, please ask them, and we can have a nice discussion and talk about it. So I was there to debunk the monk, but when he walked in, there was something very special about him. He was non-envious. He was not a person who was, in it for himself, and he was there in a mood of service. And I could tell just by looking at him that there was something special. So I asked all my questions, and he answered them nicely. But more than answering them in terms of knowledge, he actually just showed me what a valuable person looks like, just somebody who was like valuable to the world. And that was my first impression of him. And so I took spiritual life a little bit more serious after that, all things spiritual. And for a few years I meditated, I went to the gym, did some yoga, and got my life together over time. So I graduated, and things were nice. And so that's an example of how a failure can turn into success. Right? So we don't know whether life will take us this way or that way. But spiritual things and spiritual knowledge, one thing it does is it gives us insight. Because you can look at your problems, right? And you may think your problems are very big, because the container that the problems are in are around the same size as the problem. But if you can expand the size of the container, isn't it that the problem then starts looking smaller? So spiritual knowledge is that superpower to expand the container. We all have our distresses. We all have our problems day to day. We all have our, assignments due. We have our relationship problems. Sometimes we feel lonely. Sometimes we feel depressed, right? All of these different problems that are arising in society now, they happen. But if we can get a bigger container to contain these problems, then what we find is, naturally, we're better able to resolve the problems. And we can even help others once we've resolved our own problems. So getting this spiritual knowledge is quite important. And this is one of the points that I was going to discuss today, because there's a difference between understanding our role in this world, our role meaning our day-to-day activities. Are we a student, or are we are we working, or are we a parent? Are we a brother, a sister, a friend? These are all roles that we play in our life, right? And we may have many, many roles. But there's a difference between the role and our identity, right? What's the difference? One is temporary, and one is permanent. So roles, they change, right? So I worked through, when I first started, I worked at a bank called Bank of East Asia. It was like a role that, like an entry-level role, right? You get in, you do a few tasks, you learn a few things about the world. And when you're in a role, you always think that that's it, that's your life forever. But very quickly, about a year later, I moved on to another role. I worked at a Japanese bank, and there I spent 2 years. And there again, I thought, that's it. That's my role for the rest of my life. I'm just going to work at this, and I couldn't see anything else. But then a third job came up, and this job that I went to at Goldman Sachs, and I learned a lot of lessons discovering this difference between the role and the identity. Because when you go through all of these different roles, you start realizing, oh, actually, none of those roles were me, right? Because I was that yesterday, but then today I'm waking up and I'm doing something completely different to what I was doing yesterday, right? And so time is a very important factor. Time erodes all of these different roles. Over time, you'll lose your role as a student. Over time, you'll lose your role as investment banker. Over time, you'll lose your role as monk. And one of my teachers, he said to me that actually your identity is who you are when time has eroded all of the roles and has forced you to give up all of the roles that you've had in your life. That person is your identity. Right? So who is that person? Right. The Bhakti texts and Vedic scriptures, they say that that person is the soul. Right? And that's our eternal identity. And so to understand that is actually the purpose of human life. And everything else helps us understand that. Right? Because without actually working and without actually performing our roles, we can't even upkeep this body to be able to discover that fact. And so it's actually important to study. It's important to play those roles. And so today I'm coming here not to convince you to become a monk or to fully just be a spiritual being in the hills somewhere. Actually, I'm not doing that myself. I live in the city. I live in Soho Square. Can you imagine? Right? So I'm not here to convince you of that. What I'm trying to say is that these roles are temporary, but our identity is permanent. So let us find a way where we can play these roles to ultimately understand our identity over time. To do that in the end, like the hows and what to do's. But those aren't important. I wanted to establish the why first, because when you know why you're doing it, then everything becomes easy. Purpose is the best alarm clock in the world, right? I was given this example by my economics teacher. He said, if you know, if you really wanted somebody to get up early in the morning, right, and you know, a lot of us, we may be striving to do that, but we find it difficult for our spiritual practices. We get up early in the morning, but we may be finding it difficult. So my economics teacher came up with a solution. He said, you know, think who would actually get up in the morning. It's the person who's offered like a lot of money. Like if you were offered like tomorrow £1 billion to get up at 3 a.m., you'd probably set like 10 alarm clocks and you'd probably get up at 3 a.m., right? So how much do you value it? What's your why? What's your purpose? That's ultimately what determines how enthusiastic you are about something, right? So this spiritual knowledge is very important, and that's actually one of the reasons why I gave up a so-called prestigious job. Yes, it's prestigious, and it's pays a good amount of money, and you know, there's accolades that come with it, and people praise you for it. But there was an eagerness that was developed through speaking to very spiritually intelligent persons. And when you speak to a spiritually intelligent person, they don't just give you the hows, they don't give you the whats, but they really ingrain in you the why. And then you're able to make the decision for yourself. Because we're all individuals, right? You can see here that any different country. We've got India, right? Where are you from? You? Yeah? India. How about the lady behind you? Where are you from? Pakistan, right? Where are you from? Colombia. How about you? Kazakhstan. I'm from Hong Kong, right? Where are you from?
India.
India. And the gentleman behind you? Germany. Vigits. Any other countries today? Where is that? American. Yeah. Howdy. Anyone else? China. Nice. 你好。我也是中国人。Yeah. Anyone? Anyone else? Sri Lanka. Nice. They've got the coolest monks there. Sri Lanka's a really cool place. So you see, we're all from different places in the world, right? But we're all here today. We're all individuals. We all have our own life mission. We have our likes and we have our dislikes. But we can actually be united in a cause. And that's what spiritual knowledge is. It helps unite people of all different backgrounds. And it allows us to be diverse, but united. Right. So that was one thing that I really loved about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that you keep your individuality, you make your decisions, you're independently thoughtful, but you're united in goal. Isn't that a powerful notion? And that's one of the reasons why I left my job at the time. I met these persons who gave me this amazing spiritual knowledge. And so, yeah, I was going to give a few different reflections also. One thing is that people may think that if you do something spiritual, then your material life goes away, right? This dichotomy. We're always trying to balance, right? Let me do something material, so I've got to get a job and pay my bills. But at the same time, I want to practice some sort of spirituality to get my mind and my body in shape and become intelligent and know the purpose of life. We all want those things, ultimately, but we have this dichotomy. So one reflection I had was that since becoming a monk, I've never lacked anything. Right? I was speaking to a billionaire actually the other day. He comes to the temple that I work in, or that I live my life in. And he comes every morning. And I asked him, so what's the secret to your success and how does it feel to be a billionaire? I asked him that. And he gave me something very wise, because he does a spiritual practice every morning. So he's also able to give these kind of answers. He said to me, Dhirodatta, you see this jacket pocket? this jacket pocket is very deep. I have a lot of wealth. And the coins you can't even like, it's like clattering down there, so much of it. But I've got a very short hand. Right? He was making the point that even if you're a billionaire, even if you're successful, even if you have everything you need in the world, how much can you enjoy? You're just like any other person, right? He eats the same breakfast. He probably has, a nice cereal and, some milk and, a slice of toast. How about you? You also have a slice of toast, nice milk, and, like some cereal. Everybody eats roughly the same, doesn't it? Right? He may be doing it in a private jet, but still the enjoyment's roughly the same, right? So how much can we actually enjoy in this world? How much can we take on, right? There's in economics, there's a principle called diminishing marginal returns. Anyone heard of this? Yeah, most of the room. Means that if you eat one donut, it's really tasty, right? It's really good. If you eat two, it's kind of good. If you eat three, it's like good. If you eat four, it's like, and if you eat five, it's like not good, right? You're gonna be thrown out. So diminishing marginal returns. At some point, it starts going downhill when you get more. Economic studies, they say that there's, above the income of £60,000, you're pretty much even with most other people in terms of level of happiness, right? Yes, the initial up to the £60,000, that will help you pay your mortgage. It will help you live your basic necessities. But above that, happiness doesn't really improve, right? So that was one thing that helped me understand. Because nowadays I live in Soho, in a temple, and before I had an apartment. I was trying to pay my rent, and I was living with another roommate, and he was kind of smelly. And no, he was a really nice guy, actually. I really like him. He actually also worked at Goldman Sachs, and we rented a room together. I'll get back to this story later, but so I was paying the bills, making sure everything's together, and I realized, look, I'm no different than a prisoner, if you think about it. A prisoner, he's, locked in his cell. I'm locked in my cubicle. Prison cell is like 8 by 10, like a 3 by 4. Mine may be a little bit bigger, like 4 by 5, whatever. I'm in a cubicle, right? The prisoner, he has to, do his daily work, but he gets like a 15-minute break, and he goes out and, gets to go out into the yard and be free. And yeah, me also, I've got to go half an hour lunch break, sit at my desk, eat my food, right? And he does it all for free. I have to pay. Most of it goes to taxes also, right? So I was just feeling quite constrained, actually. Not that I didn't like my job, not that it wasn't a good job, not that I have anything against having a job, but it was confining, right? And we may be feeling that also now, like even at university, our jobs, we may feel confined because we're not allowed to feel and think freely, right? We have certain courseworks and certain assignments that we have to do, and they're all bracketed and done in a certain way, and you have to pass, get the grades, and so it's very confining, it seems. So that was another reflection that I had, that when you are a slave to the mind and the senses, and you're attached to things in this world, then naturally you're going to have to supply for those things, and you're going to have to earn, you're going to have to make money and all of these things to go along with it. But money, as you can see, I learned this because I was one of the things that I was putting in trades, and you can see that money is so fickle, because on the screen I was putting in these huge sums. We were doing like big club deals and loans, and we were doing big mergers. We were getting like 10, 20 banks together to get £1 billion to lend to a company. And there were all these figures just flying across the screen when I was working. Like 10 million, you just type it in, you press the enter key and it's gone. Money is so fickle. Right? And that made me realize that, all of these things is temporary. Money is just a way, it's a thing that we can use. It's a tool, but it's actually not what's important. The person who's using the money and for what cause is important. Right? So that was another reflection I had that I learnt along the way. And I realized that actually we need very little in life. The Bhagavad Gita talks about how just to keep the body and soul together is what we need. And some people will need more, right? And some people a little bit less. That's okay. There's varying degrees. Right? And so I realized, at least for this body, for my body, I don't require much. I was quite a simple guy. I was earning a lot of money, but I was only using very little. So that was another factor that contributed towards me becoming a monk. Now, those are negative factors. I started with those for a reason. Because actually more important than negative reasons for leaving something, and this is a general principle you can apply in your lives, it doesn't have to be just about jobs or school, is that in order to leave something, you need something better. Right? It's called a higher taste. Right? If you've already got something lined up next, right, then it's very easy to give up what was there before. Very simple. And so the thing that was super positive about monastic life for me was that I had a lot of really good friends. How I was transitioning at the time when I left the job was I would every day I'd join the 5 a.m. club. Have you heard of this 5 a.m. club thing? If you get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, you have at least 2 or 3 hours before everybody else who hasn't heard of spiritual things. You have 2 or 3 hours where you're just by yourself to develop the things that you want to do and you need to do for your well-being. And so I was joining the 5 a.m. club at the time, and it was so nice. I get up, I'd chant what we call the Maha Mantra. It's a type of japa meditation using sound. I'd chant that. I'd do exactly what the monks were doing in the morning, basically, just before work. Then I would cook and go for a little walk, 15 minutes in the local park. And then I'd come back, I'd read a little bit from wisdom books, and then I'd start my day. And my day was pretty grueling. It was like 9 a.m. till pretty much 9 p.m. every night with extensions, right? You can be called at any time if you're in leverage finance, any time. It'd be like 1 a.m. they give you a call. You're dealing with clients from like all over the world, right? So my only solace were these spiritual people who seemed so happy all the time. So I would watch online and I would do my japa and meditation with them online in the mornings. I'd go to work whole day from 9 and it would be non-stop, not a single second. It's just constant. And I was working from, I'll come back to that. So I was working all day, and then at night, I would read with them for an hour, from 7 to 8, and then I'd close up 8 to 9. That was my day. I did that for a whole year and a half. And that was my routine every day. So there are certain things in life that we have to give up as well. That was another principle that came up, that if you're choosing one thing, another thing is going to go, right? They say if you want to choose like the sweet spot for your career and find your dharma, then there's 3 things. One is that you should find your competency, right? 2, something that can actually keep you alive, right? And 3 is something that you love. So these 3 things, the intersection on the Venn diagram, the intersection point, that's the sweet spot. But we know the material world is not so perfect, right? We're always going to have some problems. So if you want one thing, if you want socials, then you're probably going to lack sleep. And if you want to do well at school, then you might lack you might lack socials. And there's always a trade-off. So my decision was I willing to trade off all of this time for a little extra comfort? And that was the big decision I was thinking about at the time when I left Goldman. Should I continue with these comforts, or should I actually do something that I really love and I really perhaps need in my life? So that was one of the major decision points. And so I'll end with a little anecdote of how I actually left my job and how I decided. So I was telling you about my morning routine, right, and how I was going through different things at the time and building a spiritual practice. So I was working from home for that 1.5 years. Actually, I'd only gone to the office maybe a handful of times during my time at Goldman. I went there maybe like 10, 12 times like that. Yeah. Because it was COVID time. And these are the times when you can really reflect, when you have a little space to yourself, right? Many people at home during COVID, they were getting to discover themselves. Sometimes silence. When you have a moment of silence, you're able to figure out what's going on internally, right? So that 1.5 years was like that. I got to work from home, do the things I loved, and but work at the same time. That morning practice, that constant association with people who are spiritual, helped me develop a real sense of character and a real sense of what I needed in life, what I wanted in life. And so I, one day, when there was an opportunity for an advancement in my career, I entered as an analyst, and within 6 months, they gave me an associate position. And then about a year later, so I was there for 1.5 years, about a year later, they offered me what you call a vice president role. And so that's like kind of middle management. It sounds big, but it's kind of middle management. And at that point, I had to make this decision. They were offering me this raise, and I'd read that all the things that we discussed just now, all those different realizations, how, we don't need so much in life, and that actually even a rich man, he can only enjoy so much. All of these different concepts were coming to me when my boss asked me to be promoted. He said, okay, we're going to promote you now, and will you accept? So I said, okay, Stuart, give me a week or so to think about it. He said, no, 2 days. So I went and I thought about it, and in 2 days' time I called him back. And I'd consulted with my teachers at the time. I'd consulted with the people who I trusted and loved. These were the monks at the temple. And I asked them, should I take this raise? And they told me, everything's been given to you now. All this knowledge has been given to you now. Just do what you're supposed to do. You make the decision. And so I thought about it, and I called Stuart the next day. I said to him, okay, Stuart, so you give me this raise, and I'm not being funny here, but I'm going to quit my job. And Stuart, he's an experienced guy. He's 20, 30 years old, 25 years older than me. And he'd seen this many times. He'd already heard from many people who were quitting their jobs, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. He said, oh, you're quitting your job? you're not going to JP Morgan, are you? And I was like, yes, you know. And he said, you're not going to JP Morgan, are you? And he said, I'll double your salary. And he could do that because he could just give a bonus just like that. He said, I'll double your salary. And internally I was thinking, this guy, like, you know, he's been keeping this salary from me for the last like year, you know? It's crazy. But they can do that. And when he offered me this, something in my heart just suddenly like, ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Should you take it? I mean, it's double your salary. You can buy a house with it, right? You know, sometimes you get these moments when there's like a little devil on your shoulder. You can buy a house. You can pay off your mum's mortgage. You can, like, you know, go anywhere in the world, right? You can please your partner. She'll be so happy you got the raise, right? So all of these like thoughts were racing through my mind. But then, you see, spiritual wisdom kicks in. The day before, one of my friends told me, if you look at your boss and you see him, he's 20 years older than you, 25 years older than you, and you see him and you don't want to be like him, then you should quit your job today. He didn't know I was going to quit my job. He didn't know I was thinking like that. But something in the heart, you know, you get these moments, there's some synchronicities. People tell you something and it really goes to your heart, right? So that day, that whatever he said really went to my heart. And so in that moment when my heart was racing and saying, should you do this, should you not? That little bit of wisdom kicked in. And it helped me through that moment. And so I said, Stu, I'm not going to JP Morgan. I'm going to go be a monk. And then that was when he actually went silent for like a minute. And in that minute, I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel a sudden release in the body, a certain tension going. And I could feel, wow, like, I just said it, you know, I did it. And a minute later, he looked back at me and he went, good luck. And that was it. I'd managed to get through it. And so the rest is history. Nowadays, what I do is I come and I speak to different people. I'm learning from everybody also. So actually, I'm here to learn from all of you. You guys are, like I said, the leaders of society in the next 20, 30 years. And I have a lot to learn from you. And so when I come and give lectures, it's a learning experience for me, and I feel that freshness every day when I get to speak with intelligent, inquisitive young minds and peers and have amazing mentors. So I do that nowadays. I give talks, I give people wisdom, books, I counsel them one-on-one or in small groups. And sometimes we go out for charity projects, like we'll go out and we'll give food to the homeless. And we also have the whole morning and lots of time where we can actually develop our own spiritual practice, to be happy ourselves, because you can't give something that you yourself don't have. And the main reason that I wanted to go was because I wanted to give something back to this world. And like I said, you're all leaders. So leaders, they tend to want to give. And we must then consider, what is it that we can provide to society in this world? What is it that we can actually give in this world? An action. And what's the highest good for the largest amount of persons? And that was the reason that I became a monk, because I understood that at the core of every being, doesn't matter where you're from, like we discussed, or what industry or what firm you're working at, all of these temporary roles, asking a person to really dig deep, make the challenging decisions to understand who they are and who their identity is, actually that was the greatest help that I could provide in this world. So I'll leave it there for today. And if there's any questions, I'd love to discuss with you. And please make the questions as difficult as possible. Yes, we've got one.
so much to Dhirodatta. We have around 10-15 minutes for questions, but you can feel free to speak to him over dinner as well. He'll be here with us, and yeah, over to questions.
So my name is Dia.
Dia.
I'm also from UCL. But
Oh, okay.
originally I'm from Vrindavan,
Oh, nice.
India. So my question is regarding how you've talked about like money, human relationships, those sort of attachment, those sort of roles, technically, and we are very aware that they might come and go, and we never know when they might come and when they might go. Yet there is this sort of attachment with them and sort of expectations, even when we are giving the inputs, we have expectations of the outcomes as well, which certainly at times leads to disappointments. So when we're living in this materialistic world, how do we prevent ourselves from that sort of disappointment or that sort of attachment?
Yeah, nice. So the question was, I'm just going to repeat it briefly, is that we have so many different roles and we're transitioning from one to another, and we may have wanted something a lot, and sometimes we get disappointed by it. So how can we not be disappointed by that? Okay. One thing that we can do is realize that we're not in control of the situation, right? I'll give you an example. When I was applying for spring weeks in my first year, I'd put in maybe 300 applications. I got one interview from HSBC. I did the interview, I prepared as hard as I could. I did like an all-nighter. Probably not a good idea now, reconsidering it. But I went and did miserably in the thing, because the person who was adjudicating just really didn't like me. So I didn't get the job, having applied for 300 applications. And then, how I got my job at Goldman, I was just working happily. I was doing my spiritual practice. I was doing meditation at the time. I wasn't really bothering. I was just kind of just hanging out with my friends in the evenings. We'd talk and just chat. And then I'd work during the day and, do my duties. But then the job actually landed in my inbox. My dream job, the job that I thought I would do from like when I was 8 years old. Like, my mum was already telling me about it. My dad was like, yeah, you go do your finance stuff. And I was talking with my friends, okay, we're going to buy an island soon. We're going to have a private jet, And that job landed in my inbox without me even asking for it. I'd already given up the hope by then. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty happy in my current job. Just keep going. But that job landed. And I went and, the headhunter said to me, oh, we got this job. Your profile seems right. Just send in your CV. I hadn't updated my CV for 2 years, but at that point, I just, whatever, it's fine. Okay, I'll just send it in. And they're like, oh, I like your CV. Please come for an interview. And then I actually did a test that day because I was already really quite into spiritual practices at the time. I was like, okay, so Krishna, you say that we're not the doer, right? You're the doer. So, okay. I was in the waiting room and I said, okay, so should I prepare now or should I just do some meditation? And I was sitting in the sitting room. I said, okay, I'm just going to give this a try. So I just sat and I did my meditation. I didn't even try and prepare. I went in. It was the best interview I'd ever done. Not because I was good or that I had prepared, but the interviewer just liked me. So I got this job having not tried at all. And then I got my dream job. And the other time, I tried so hard, nothing at all. And so I had this reflection later. I realized there are thousands and thousands of people applying for this job. I didn't even want it, and I got it. And then on the other hand, I was also on the other side at one point. I was applying for this job, and I couldn't get it. We're not in control, right? So if we're But if we stay connected to the person who is in control, and in the Vedic text it says that we're all coming from a source. We've all had a father who had a father who had a father who had a father, right? And so that person, the root of all things, that person's actually in control. And so if you're able to let go and be like, okay, you take charge of my life and let me do my duties, but you take charge, then you'll find very soon that you don't get worried and you also don't get too happy. You don't become elated and you don't become worried and anxious. Both, right? Because they're the two sides of the same coin. Right? So connection is what brings that happiness and that steadiness and that equipoised nature that we can have. Just a little daily connection, that's all. Is that okay? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much for the talk. I'm Urbi. I'm also from UCL.
Urbi, nice. Yeah, we got a lot of UCL students here.
So there are many devotees who didn't take the monk path. Like they have a career, they have wealth, they have partner, and so why is it that you chose to be a monk instead of trying to have that material life, but then with spirituality as well, like integrated into it? And do you consider those paths to be equal or not?
Yeah. So Urbi is asking, why is it that I chose the monk path rather than just doing our daily duties and practicing spirituality at the same time? Are they equal? So the Bhagavad Gita talks about this. Those paths are equal on a spiritual level because it says, there's a beautiful quote in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, it's better to be a sincere sweeper in the street than to be a charlatan meditator. Because spirituality, Krishna consciousness, is an internal process. It's not an external process. You can have somebody who's dressed as a monk and internally thinking about fame, fortune, women, wealth. And you can have somebody who's a great king or a great businessman with so much to look after. And that person is internally saying, none of this belongs to me. So renunciation doesn't mean changing the color of your cloth or clothes. It means how much have you internally understood that none of this belongs to you, that you're temporary guardians of this place, and that ultimately you're going back to somewhere that's spiritual and you have a destination, right? So spiritually it's equal. But the reason that there is also a difference is because with having a job and family life comes many encumbrances, right? So if you do want to have a family, you're going to need a car, you're going to need a house, right? You're going to have to take everyone on holiday, and you're going to have to strive for your job and do well in society, because those are all indicators of how well you can actually, manage your family life. So all of those are actually things that bind us, right? It ties us. So for me, I'd already experienced many of those things. Perhaps it was from a previous life. I tell this story because I did a past life regression with one person called Jayadev. He's my good friend. He was the lead singer of the Rubettes. No, sorry, he's not the lead singer. He was the drummer in the Rubettes. And he's also a Bhakti practitioner. He did a past life regression on me, and last life I was a monk already, but I didn't like the monastery I was in. So, because everybody was really impersonal, and they, didn't want to share anything, and they were all by themselves. So I wanted to live a monk style where you could share. Right? So sharing was one thing that brought me towards this path. And in a previous life, I was a pharaoh. And I found that really boring because everybody was worshipping me and giving me fruits and flowers, and I was sitting there and being like, I don't deserve any of this. It's kind of boring. So I'd been through those two lives. And in this life, I'd experienced some of the good things that you can have in this world. You know, I used to go to Westminster Abbey every day and sing there. You know, I went to UCL, which has so many nice facilities and amazing teachers, and you know, then I got to experience Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I had a partner at the time as well, and so I'd experienced all of these things, and none of it was giving me a taste in life. So I realized actually I didn't need much in this life for this body. That's just, again, this is just my own personal individual path. Not that everyone should take it, but we do have vacancies if you want to come. So from that perspective, it's not equal, because then you can give all your time to sharing spirituality with others and helping others realize their path. You can give all of your time. And that's the advantage of monkhood, that you can do that. But then also the advantages of having a family and the advantages of having material is that you can make social change easily. And you can make it easier for others to pick up their spirituality if, let's say, you become the leader of or a CEO in a big Fortune 500 company. Think how many people you can influence. You could say one of you in 20 years' time, or maybe for some of you in the next year, you could change the company culture. You can make it more spiritually driven. And within your own family, you can give charity, right? You can give charity to spiritual causes. And on an even more personal level, you can bring up a next generation of persons who are spiritually inspired. So many benefits of being in material life. But again, the goal is very important. They say if you get into a taxi, the first thing they ask you is, where are you going? Right? So whether you're a monk or whether you're doing daily duties and being part of traditional society, if you have the same goal and you're constantly and sincerely working towards that goal, then there's really no difference. So those are the pros and cons. Now it's your choice. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. There was one there, and one there. Okay.
Thank you for that talk.
Last one. Okay. Last one, and we can talk at dinner. Yeah. Your name?
Arjun. I'm also at UCL.
Arjun, nice to see you. Hey. UCL representing. Amazing.
And this is a bit of a personal question.
Sure.
So feel free not to answer it.
Sure.
But I'm curious what you would consider one of your happiest days was, and more importantly, what it was like why you would consider it your happiest day.
Wow, happiest day. Wow, I haven't thought about this one, because every day is kind of happy. Today was a really happy day. Is a happy day. I'm feeling pretty blissful right now. You have no idea. I got to pick up my friend from India. He just came back. He's my temple president and friend. And he'd just been on a 17-hour flight. Because he has some duties here, and so he'd been in India for a month, traveling and chanting mantras, going to different temples and giving classes and things like that with 7 other monks. And he needed to get back today. So he took 3 planes to get back here. He had to avoid Iran, he had to avoid Ukraine, and he had to fly jet speed through the middle of those 2 countries. So it wasn't easy. He came through Warsaw and then came back. And so I went to pick him up just before this. It was a 3-hour drive in total. So I went 1.5 hours. I was listening to beautiful kirtans, which is a type of meditation. So nice, so melodious. And then the mantra itself is so mesmerizing, So what was it, 1.5 hours spent? And then when I was there, I was just waiting for him to come through. I was just, I was you have such a deep affinity for persons who are also taking on a similar mission to you. And so I've got a great love for him, and I was just standing there and waiting for him, just excited. Sometimes you have more excitement when somebody's away from you than when you're there with them. So I had this anticipation. He came back, and we spent the whole hour and a half on the way back just talking about all the adventures he had in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, in Jagannath Puri, all of these places that were so spiritually charged. And so these conversations are the conversations that I'll remember deeply for the rest of my life. This kind of didn't require any fireworks, but just simple moments. And now, also, having driven 3 hours, I was so tired, but I come into a room full of amazing people, so inspired and asking nice questions, and I just feel so inspired again. And yesterday there was a huge festival at the temple. We cooked I think it must have been over 100 preparations. Can you imagine? 100 different dishes of very nice food. And we celebrated with so many other Bhakti practitioners. It was so joyful. Every day you have these very intimate and encouraging experiences. So I didn't give you a very definitive one answer or one event, but that's actually the nature of Bhakti, that you have a constant joy rather than a one-off spiritual experience and then that's it, No, Bhakti is even. It's in the mood of service. You try and serve as much as you can, and that service allows you to experience love and joy as a byproduct, not something that we chase. Yeah. Is that okay, Arjun?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Can we give one more massive round? On behalf of KCSOC, I feel we've really gained so many pearls of wisdom. You obviously have so much experience and knowledge and depth behind everything that you've shared, and I think it's definitely given me some room for thought as well. Dhirodatta will be available over dinner for questions. I'm sure there's more questions dotted around. But yeah, once again, thank you for giving us your time.